Chalo, let's start our Neuroscience 101 class. Let's say a baby is born and we're able to zoom inside the brain and put the brain under a microscope. This is like that movie, The Truman Show, but we're inside the brain now. I'm assuming most humans are born with a blueprint of what a brain should look like because human brains look largely the same. So what is that blueprint? How much of that is followed? What circuits are consolidated? What neural circuits are eliminated? How does the brain develop?
So the brain follows, like every other organ in the body, and though of course I'm biased and I think the brain is the coolest organ. Every organ
I want
has...
hate mail from people who like heart or liver.
People are going to say liver and muscle are way more interesting. No, but the brain is a super interesting organ. All organs follow a genetic blueprint, which you use. It's like a recipe book, right? So you have some fundamental recipes which everything has to follow. So obviously left-right symmetry, you will need... All of us are bilaterally symmetrical, especially bilaterally symmetrical organisms will have a symmetry map as well. And there are genes that are determining that. There are things that are telling you which is the front end of the body and the back end of the body. It's also telling you where your limbs have to come out, etc. Much the same way, the brain forms from this tube, which then has to grow to different degrees and proportions. The tube is most easily identifiable in our spinal cord, because it is a tube. You can clearly see it's a tube. It was also a tube at the front end, which then over-proliferated in different degrees and extents at different parts of the tube to give you this large cortex, which has spilled over and formed this big blob. That's the thing that we have in evolution ended up adding the most of. But basically, it's the tube proliferating and then setting up structure. And so structure is emerging from cells dividing, which then go through folding, etc. And the brain, and the baby brain at like 9 months is actually pretty much, it looks like the proper textbook brain. It doesn't look like some tube that is still growing. It still looks pretty much in place, right? So things that are supposed to be where they are where they are. You have a frontal cortex here, you have your parietal cortex here, you're going to stick your visual cortex in the back. It's not like there are human beings running around with the visual cortex stuck in the wrong place. So the map is pretty unforgiving in terms of expecting that to be the structure. So once that structure is laid down, it's in the detail that it starts varying. It's not in the large sort of information of where
not
things
the
are.
outline. No.
Yeah, it's like building information, right? On a huge campus, you know where the buildings are going to be. But in the buildings, you may vary the detail of specific things. You may change which floor you have how many rooms in. You might change how things are connected, where you're going to put the lifts, etc. So in the detail is the educating of the blueprint. So if your blueprint is already in place, you're now going to have to educate that blueprint. And in a sense, you think about it as an organ that is unlike, your liver, muscle also all do this. You are using your environment to predict how most optimally your brain can be developed to suit that environment, right? So in a sense, your blueprint's given you the structure, but now you're going to use that blueprint and tweak it to make it more optimal for the environment in which it has to operate.
This is the nurture aspect now. Before it was nature.
Yeah. There's the nurture aspect, right? So let's say the most sort of fascinating discoveries that have won the Nobel Prize for Hubel-Wiesel, etc., reveal that if you provide incomplete visual information, then your visual cortex, which is already in place and has been laid out, is going to use this incomplete information to tweak how it's going to fine-tune itself. It's going to say, okay, let's say I put a patch, okay, like a pirate on my right eye, and so now I don't have any information coming from my right eye. Then my brain is thinking, hey, this eye is actually quite useless in terms of giving me information, but this eye is giving me all the information, so I better give most of the territory to this eye and sort of give away the territory for this eye because this is not doing its job. If you do that and over time, you let this person grow up. Over time, you can actually become functionally blind in the eye, not because the retina is not working. So if you record from the retina, you'll still get responses to light, etc. It's just that your brain has decided this is useless input and I'm not going to waste territory on this eye.
Is this reversible?
It is if you do it in a critical period window. So if you open up this patch in a certain window in which while the brain is still doing this fine-tuning, then yeah, it's absolutely okay because the brain says, oh, okay, you've come back online. Now you're doing your job, so I'm going to give you back some territory. But if you do this after...
As an adult.
Yeah, then you're like, oh, so this is became really important because, for example, we are binocular animals. So, we see this huge part of our universe is binocular. Then we have these monocular parts of our vision as well. But suppose you're squinted and you're not catching information appropriately, right? Or let's say you have a cataract, and there are congenital cataracts. Children are born. It's as good as putting a black patch because there's a huge occluded, cloudy lens, and you can't see anything. So if you have that sort of a situation, in the past, people used to think, oh, who wants to do a surgery on a little baby? Let's just wait till the kid is a lot older, then we'll take out the cataract. Cataract's not a life-threatening issue. We just take it out later. If you do it later, it's as good as having made that kid functionally blind in that eye. So this discovery, which was a basic science discovery, immediately provided insights to neurosurgeons and pediatric neurologists and neurosurgeons that we can't take this chance of delaying it. We have to do this faster because the brain actually cares about what input you're providing. Yeah. So that's perhaps the best known example of critical period plasticity, where the brain takes input from the environment to decide how best to utilize territory within the cortex.
How long does this period last?
It's highly variable depending on which kind of cortex you're looking at. So for vision, it's a different window. For language, which also has a critical period, it's a different window. This you will realize. If today at this age, you and I decided, hey, I want to learn Russian, or let's say I want to learn Persian, or I'm going to learn some completely alien language to me, which I don't know, you're going to struggle to do it. But if you decide to do this before 7 to 10 years of age, you're going to be bilingual with much greater ease because you just learn language. You're in the critical period window for language development. So auditory systems, it's a different window. So for each of these different systems, there are different windows of time for which the critical period lets that sort of exploring of environment to impact the brain stay open. It does. I mean, this doesn't suggest that everything is hardwired and nothing ever changes later. That's not true. But the scale on which it changes and the degree to which it can impact the brain starts going downwards once the critical period is over.
I knew I should have learned Russian when I was 10 years old. Missed out that opportunity.